Well, thank you for joining me. My name is Greg Nelson. I'm the owner of a sales training and coaching company here in the Pacific Northwest called The Hard Knock State. I'm a, 20-year sales veteran. I've been in business for over 30 years. I've climbed two different ladders, one in the grocery industry, where I not only climbed the ladder up into departmental management, but I also owned a couple different markets. I then, 20 years ago, made the jump into retail commission sales. And I took a, job as a sales associate for a small used car dealership, and that's really where I learned how to survive on 100% commission sales. And I know it's a scary thought for most, being able to make that jump from, getting a secure paycheck just from clocking in and clocking out and putting in hours at work, to going to something to where you could essentially get to work at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning and not leave until the job is done, until you've made your sale, or until you've met your hit your targets for the day. And sometimes you could be there all day long, and even into the into the night, 10, 11 o'clock, before leaving the dealership, and even leaving the dealership at that time and going all day without making a sale. So I know that is a worry for a lot of people thinking about getting into a career in sales, and whether they're going to be able to make enough money to pay their bills, but also whether they're going to be able to make money consistently to keep it going, and develop a long career in it. For the over the past half of a decade, I was promoted into sales management at the last sales organization that I worked for, and I trained and coached sales professionals of all skill levels, those who were just new into the selling industry. And I've got to tell you, sales is a skill and it's a trade, just like being a plumber, just like being an electrician, heck, just like going to school for 8 years and becoming a doctor. It is a skill and it's a trade, and there is a process that goes along with it. And the reality is there's many different processes out there. There's many different sales leading gurus out there, or sales training gurus out there, and each one of them seem to have a little different process. And every selling organization you go to, whether it's a dealership, whether that's an automotive dealership, a furniture dealership, a stove or spa dealer, those type of retail commission sales, or whether you go to insurance companies, and from insurance to real estate, no matter what the industry in that selling organization, there always seems to be a slightly different sales process. Well, I've got to tell you, it was about 10 years ago. I remember this one day in particular, and this is coming from, I knew only heard a couple different ways on how to go about a sales process, and each one of them were slightly different. And so it was about 10 years ago. I remember this one day I was walking in to a sales meeting, and I was handed my paycheck as I was walking into the conference room, and I sat down in my chair, and I opened up my paycheck, and oh my God, my face had just turned so bright red like a fire truck. And I actually did one of these. I slumped down in my chair, and I was really, really just trying to hide and keep out of eyesight from the sales manager. But before you know it, I heard it. I was being called out, "Hey, Greg," by the sales manager, to tell the entire department, okay, how many sales I had out for the month. And realistically, it was more like how many sales I didn't have out for the month. And I got to tell you, I was embarrassed. I was demotivated. And the rest of my performance for the weekend was shot. And being so worried about my kids, and paying bills, and how I was going to be able to keep the lights on. When I got home that evening, my wife greeted me at the door and told me that our water had been turned off. And so, it was probably about, gosh, I would say a week, maybe 2 weeks later. I remember I was taking a coffee break, and I was talking to another sales associate, another coworker of mine who had not been in sales for as many years as I have, and was quite honestly only about a half of my age. And so anyway, I'm talking to him, and he seemed to be turning a corner, and his sales seemed to be just increasing. And I was really kind of just trying to pick his brain to find out what he was doing. And he turned me on to this one sales trainer, this guy, and I had heard about him before when my first stint when I tried to get into automotive sales, and that was in 1998. I was given a audio like a book of audio cassettes of kind of worn out and mismatched cassettes, and I was told to listen to those, listen to what this guy says, and repeat it to the customer. And needless to say, with not having the correct information in front of me, I wasn't able to make a go of it. And that little period of time was shortly ended, and I went back, tucked my tail between my legs, and went back into the safe, get paid by the hour grocery industry. Which, I mean, hey, it was great. I actually really enjoy the grocery industry. I enjoy working with people, and I enjoy helping people. And I think that's what attracted me to that industry, and what also attracted me into sales. So anyway, I was talking to this coworker, and he recommended an audiobook. Well, I didn't get that exact same audiobook. I got another one, and I listened to that just on repeat over and over and over again. But before you knew it, uh, maybe a month, 2 months later, I went and I got another audiobook, the one he recommended, and then, listened to that over and over and over again. Then I got another one and ate that up, and then got another one and ate that up. And then all of a sudden I was listening to these books just on repeat. And I was, able, because I had kind of a small library of these audiobooks. I was able to just kind of mix it up whenever I got tired of one, I listened to another. But, before I knew it, I was watching him on YouTube, and then before knew it, I was watching him on his TV channel, his that he has, and then before I knew it, I was going to online webinars, and then before I knew it, it was at the end of the year, and my sales had shot up to where I'd never thought they would. I was always an average sales producer. And I looked back at the end of the year, and it wasn't until my boss tapped me on the shoulder and told me, "Hey, great job! We're one of the top performers of the year, and you finished fourth in the store." And this was out of like 48 sales associates at the time, so that was a pretty good feat for me. And then, but the thing that I kept getting good at was listening to this material and these strategies that he would say over and over again. And he had an online training platform, still does today. And I actually signed up for it at that period of time, and I got on it, and I kind of studied it for year and a half, 2 years. And but then 6 months later, after that period of time, I was promoted. That's when I was promoted into management, and started taking on the task of not only training and coaching sales associates, but also learning, uh, I guess, what I would do, how I would classify this. But I was also doing the follow up for the entire dealership. So anytime a customer would come to the store the previous day, and they would look at a written proposal, all that information about the numbers that were shown, the trade in, all that kind of stuff was stapled together. And then the next morning, I would pick up all those files, and I would go back to my desk, and in between training sales associates, I'd make these phone calls, and I'd start calling these customers back. And the reason why that task was in front of me was because of this material that I have learned about how to get good on the phones and how to master the phones. When I first started out in sales, I got to tell you, my game was weak, and I shied away from the phones, just like many of you. The reason why you shy away from the phones is because you don't know what to say. So with that, this gentleman's name, who I just continued to study from, his name is Grant Cardone. And if you do not know who Grant Cardone is, you've been sleeping under a rock. I mean, I can't believe that I still to this day, once in a while, will bump into somebody who tells me they don't know who he is, especially younger people. And that just really throws me for a loop. I mean, his YouTube channels have, over, 2 million subscribers. And, he is an internationally renowned speaker of leadership, real estate, investing, entrepreneurship, social media, and finance. And, he was number one on Forbes' list of the top 25 marketing influencers to watch. He's a best-selling author of several books, including The 10X Rule. This just took business and this just took, honestly, the world by storm, this book. And it's The 10X Rule, the only difference between success and failure. And he's also the, seven of his privately held companies. He owns seven privately held companies, and those all have risen over $2 million or $1 million. So hey, if you're listening in your phone along because you wanted to get some facts about the phone, here's one thing I would tell you to do is I would tell you to watch and listen actively and take notes to what I'm about to say. And, there is I have on February 11th at 10 a.m. I'm putting on a phone sales mastery workshop. And this is a half day workshop. It's a half day interactive workshop. And if you go to thehardknockstate.com, it's written on the whiteboard behind me. But if you go to thehardknockstate.com and scroll to the bottom of the appointments page, you'll see a section for webinars, virtual webinars. Click on phone sales mastery. And with that, you're going to learn how to master the most valuable tool in your business, which is the phone. You are going to learn how to handle the call, whether that's an incoming call or an outbound sales call, a cold call, whether you're prospecting or whether you're answering generic questions of people calling into the store. You're also going to learn how to control that call. Okay, because that's where most of us can put on a smile. We can answer the phone professionally when we choose to. But the reality is, it's how do you control the call and how do you control the caller on that call? So we're going to be covering that on February 11th at 10 a.m. We're also going to teach you how to set appointments, not just set appointments, how to set more appointments than you've ever set before. We're going to teach you how to lock in those appointments to guarantee that they show or that more show. And then we're going to go over a lot of other material. You are going to get a follow along digital download study at home workbook that you could go back and refer to it as many times as you want. And I really got to tell you, the telephone is the single most effective way to communicate with a prospective client without being directly in front of them. The value of knowing the value of the phone is so important. You really create an impression of yourself prior to meeting the buyer when you can get good on the phone. And when you do that, you can easily sell appointments. And so that's what we're doing. The whole purpose of a phone call, I used to believe up until, I got tied in with Grant Cardone, was that the purpose of a phone call was to set an appointment. Well, that is true to some extent, but we need to look at the root of it. The purpose of a phone call is to make a sale. And but first, we need to set an appointment to get them in. So our first sale, our first interaction comes from selling the appointment. And so when you know the value of a phone, you can sell more appointments, get them to show. You can officially communicate with many different people. I always believe, and I'm a true believer, that if you can sell on the phone, you can sell in person. And I think, a lot of showrooms and retail organizations, they kind of they always seem to throw the associate right out on the floor. Go interact with the customer and go make a friend and keep a smile on your face and remember the big sale and follow the process and all that. But the real thing is I used to take sales associates, and I got to tell you, I would get them good on the phone and then let them loose on a live customer, because the premise of making the sale and the process of the sale doesn't matter whether you're on the phone, whether you're communicating only by text message or email, or whether you're directly in person with them. Yeah, things are a little different. You're not directly, making eye contact with an individual, but you are communicating and you're learning how to communicate effectively. Yeah, you know, I don't know if you remember the old Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Bloodsport, but remember that he was going to the old guy in the jungle to learn how to, his sensei or his master, to get a sense of, better sense of the skill of martial arts. So what did the sensei do? He, or the master, he blindfolds him, right, and he makes him go off and just start training all blindfolded. Well, when you're on the phone, that's essentially the same thing. You can sell in person, but can you sell on the phone? So if you reverse that, if a lot of sales managers and your organization is training sales associates, man, teach them on the phone first. Teach them how to get good on the phone first, and then let them loose on on the walk-in traffic. You know, I got to tell you, it is essential for handling incoming calls. It is essential to get good at handling these incoming calls. And the reality is most sales associates, they're decent and they're good at handling the face-to-face customer, but get them on the phone, they're just lost. That's the reason why I'm a firm believer of teaching them on the phone first, and then let them go on a walk-in. But you getting the value of the phone, I got to tell you, it's also a competitive advantage, because knowing that most people are not good on the phone, in that situation, if you're good on the phone, you already have the upper hand to your competition. The value of the phone gives you an edge in the marketplace, plain and simple. If it gives you a competitive advantage over the guy down the street, or the competition that you're even working with in your own organization, because hey, look, we're all trying to get to that top producer status. Every single one of us want to be a top producer, and if maybe you've licked the flames. Maybe you've held the torch on the top of the podium a couple times or a few times. But if you can do that and run at that performance level and make it consistent, you'll never have you can write your own ticket. You'll never have a care in the world. Buyers like shopping on the phone, and it's a more efficient use of their time. They do, typically 40 hours of research. I even think in automobiles, the last statistic I heard was that a buyer will do 72 hours of research on an automobile before they even walk into the dealership. And then when they do walk into the dealership, they don't walk into multiple different dealerships. They visit, I think the statistic is 1.5. And how do you get to a 0.5? Well, you're just taking an average of all the people who took the survey there. But yeah, that's they visit 1.5 dealerships, and they do something like 72 hours of research on that one automobile before they even go in there. But once they get in there, the reality is a good salesperson just won't show them, or just won't walk them over to that one automobile that they want to come in and look at. They're gonna do some fact finding. They're gonna do some investigating, and I like to call this stuff the discovery, but it is essentially, it's just fact finding. We're finding out through a line of questions on what the customer is there for, what's the purpose, and what problem are they trying to solve. And so with that, it's the same when they're making a phone call into the store. And so they're doing some research. They're serious about it, serious enough to where they're going to pick up the phone and engage with a salesperson over the phone. And that right there in itself should be there should be a bell going off in your head, that when your phone is ringing at your place of business, that somebody's pretty serious. Because you can get so much information off the internet today that a lot of times the only reason why they would call in is to either make sure that you have that in stock, maybe to find out how many and what different options and colors that comes in that you're carrying in inventory and what your price is. And also, maybe they've been doing 72 hours of research, but there's an additional question that they have, or could even be that they're already a customer of your organization and they want to call in for additional information on something else. So the types of the calls you have, the on the incoming calls, you have calling back showroom traffic. Okay. Yeah. You have lead generation. You're creating new customers. That's the second one. And the other one would be follow up of sold customers. So those are the types of calls. And I got to tell you, there are a few rules when it comes along to phone calls. And number one, you always want to make sure that when you're calling somebody, you have a purpose to that phone call. And so you just don't want, especially when it comes to follow up. Let's say we're not talking about the customer calling into the store now, or the prospective client calling in to the office looking to find out if your insurance plan covers A, B, and C. Maybe now you're following up with a customer, so you're following up with a potential client, and maybe gosh, they came in, they looked at an insurance policy, or maybe they called in, they talked with a real estate agent about a certain townhouse or condo, or house in the suburbs, and so now you're trying to reach back out to them. So number one, always call with a purpose, and then pay complete attention to that phone call. Now, rule number two is have multiple reasons why you want to get a hold of that customer, and relay information to them. Just don't have one reason, have multiple reasons. You need to be able to take the conversation down a different path if the first reason you called falls out to be a bust, just like uh, the firework, the 4th of July firework you go to light off, and it's a dead fuse, right? Now, rule number three is you never want to just make one phone call. We want to block out a time. If we're going to sit down and we're going to make a phone call, we want to block out time to make phone calls. Okay. Hey, maybe you just had to run by real quick, and you needed to call a customer back just for a quick second, then you need to hop off to something else. We'll make one phone call and then follow it up and leave somebody else a message. But take, really block out some time, take 30, 40, 45 minutes, and see how many phone calls you can make in that said period of time, and make a game out of it. I think that's a lot of the thing with salespeople and following up with customers, is they're taking the wrong approach. They have the wrong mindset about picking up the phone, and we want to just quickly divert to a text message. And hey, text message is still, I mean, that's better than nothing, right? And you should text message. Most people are texting these days, but uh, text can be construed differently in the tone of the reader. So let's say Bob Jones was in your store yesterday, and Bob Jones was looking at, I don't know, gosh, a new Bosch dishwasher. And Bob had a lot of questions. You treated Bob well. You exchanged information with Bob. He gave you his phone number. You were supposed to check on something about um, something, some kind of feature that dishwasher had, and so you're calling Bob back, and and so you leave Bob a message. We'll quickly pick up the phone call, the phone, maybe hang it up, and quickly leave somebody else a message. But on a text message, if let's say Bob picks up the phone, or you're texting Bob, okay, and so Bob's had a really rough day. Just Bob woke up on the wrong side of the bed. He stubbed his toe getting out of bed. He went, realized that he forgot to pick up coffee for the coffee pot, and so now he doesn't have any coffee, and he's really grumpy. And so his morning shot, he burnt the toast, whatever, spilled his orange juice, whatever it is. And so 9 o'clock rolls around, and you go and you send Bob a text message. Well, Bob's upset, and your text message just comes through. Bob reads it because Bob's in a bad mood. He automatically imposes or puts some sarcasm into what you're texting to him, or he's in a bad mood. But when you're it's so it's hard to interpret emotions through a text message. However, when you call a customer, they can hear the tone in your voice, and they can tell whether you're happy or whether you're grumpy, whether you're kind of slouching down in your chair. I always tell people, hey, put a sign in front of you that says smile. And so I always have one in front of me. So whenever I'm on the phone, I always it's just a reminder to turn the corners of my mouth up, because believe it or not, just doing that, the person on the other end of the phone will be able to tell whether I'm smiling and whether or not. And so when I'm communicating with a customer, it's always going to come from a place of happiness. And rule number 4, oh gosh, I can't really, I don't even know why you'd pick up the phone and not do this, but gosh, so many salespeople are guilty of not doing this. But rule number 4 is always, always leave a message. 98% of salespeople typically break that rule. Man, always leave a message. And I've said it many times before, but in the days of robocalls, and in today's world of, you know, just a bombardment of phone calls, we know whether it's a robocall, a solicitor, we know that it's not important if they don't leave a message. And I get so tired of the robocalls, I get just hammered with them, that if I see a phone number that I don't recognize, or they're not in my caller ID, and it rings one, and I just let it go to voicemail, or maybe I missed it, and there's no voice message, you know, I I have my systems, of my contacts, I'll run that number through my contacts. Maybe it doesn't come up, so I don't call them back, right? I go, okay, gotcha, maybe it's not important. And then the next day, or maybe later in the day, that number calls me again, and again, no message. Oh gosh, now I know it's a robocall, or now I know it's a solicitor or something. The third time, usually the second day, when that phone rings and they don't leave a message, I just block the number. It's not important enough, right? It's a robocall, right? It's not important enough for them to get their message across to me. They're just playing on the odds that somebody's going to pick up the phone. So you want to make sure you can separate yourself from the competition. You could do this so easily just by leaving a voice message. Here's the fifth rule: always talk to multiple people. If you're calling B2B, or even if you're calling B2C, and say you're calling Bob Jones, right? And anyway, so you're calling Bob, and Bob's not home. Well, talk to somebody else. Hey, is Bob's wife there? Who else knows that Bob's out looking at a car today? Is there anybody else I could speak to where I could give some information to make sure that it gets into Bob's hands? So talk to multiple people when you're on the phone, if you can. And another rule number 6 is always try another way to get to that person. So if you're hitting a wall just by making phone calls and leaving a message, and they're not trying to get back to you, man, try to text them, email them, find another number. Look, maybe they're on LinkedIn, maybe they're on Facebook, maybe they're on Instagram, and heck, maybe try to connect with them there. And then once you do, send them a direct message. Rule number 7 is always go for a cell phone number. This is the only number we really need. Still today, there are people that have landlines. They're far and few in between. But you know what? If a customer is shopping, they know, they have a fear of being followed up with. And so they have a fear of not only making a bad financial decision, they have not only a fear of being talked into something they don't want to buy or do from the salesperson, but they also have a fear of being followed up with. And so go for a cell phone number, because if they do have a landline, they're going to give that to you, and that's their screening phone number. That's the I mean, they may have a landline and they may have a answering machine plugged into it, but I guarantee you that answering machine is off and the message box is probably full. Rule number 8: always collect an email address. Hey, and the more ways we can get in touch with our prospective client, the better off it is. What if you come across some important information that you need to relay to the customer, that that would be detrimental to the customer moving forward in buying your product or service? So, rule number 8 is we always need to collect an email address. It's this is probably just like getting a cell phone number. This is the second best habit we could get into. Number 9 is always follow up with another call or another type of communication. And so when you're on the phone, man, try to reach out to them by a text message as well. Approach every call with a great attitude. And look, just like I said, when I put this little sign in front of me that says smile, so people on the other side of the phone, they could hear that I'm a happy-go-lucky individual. And then in return, because I'm happy and go lucky and I'm not confrontation and I'm not disagreeable and I don't sound like a slouch, chances of them turning up the corners of their mouth and being happy too are better odds of that happening. Look, there's so many different theories about the phone out there and so many mistruths about the phone. These are what, like, Grant likes to call the myths. It's the price myth, or it's this is the myths about the phone. And so you may have a coworker you're working with, or maybe they do okay. Maybe they're an above average sales associate, but you never see them on the phone. This person may believe and may tell you that the phone is a complete waste of time. Don't listen to it. Or you may hear stuff, from other salespeople, and they're probably just average or lower performers, or maybe they again do okay, but they're not really setting the world on fire. Nobody's paying them any recognition, for a job well done at the end of the month. But they may tell you if the buyer was serious, he or she would come in and not call. Well, with gas, the price of gas today, and how much competition is out there. I know when I was selling the manufacturer of the automobile brand I was selling for, I got to tell you, there was a dealership 10 miles in every direction of me. And you go to the next store, there's another dealership selling that same brand 10 miles within them. And so in highly concentrated metropolitan areas, you got to understand that the buyer is serious just by picking up the phone. How about this one? I'll miss opportunities using this. Hey, if I sit at the phone, man, I'm going to miss an opportunity of somebody coming into the showroom, right? That's not necessarily true either. We need to maximize all. You need to maximize every angle. So when you're, no matter whether you're selling automobiles, furniture, whatever it is, jacuzzis, spas, fireplaces, appliances, whatever, right? You're selling. You're selling packaging material. Let's say you're selling anything. You need to understand that you're not going to miss an opportunity by being on. Okay, you can. The phone is a time multiplier, right? And so you can literally call. Like, let's say you're in an outside selling organization. You got one guy who just you don't never see him in the office making phone calls because he's all about the personal visit. And the personal visit is probably the most powerful thing it is the most powerful thing you could do, and where you will increase your odds. But man, you're driving 10, 20, 30 minutes from client to client and being on the phone, and that how many phone calls could you make to talk to that client to make sure you could even get in front of them first, or maybe they just want to Maybe their time is so valuable and they're so busy that they don't even want to meet you in their store and they just want to talk over phone, or if we could get this done over a quick Zoom call or something. Right then and there, you've just multiplied your time. So the phone is not a waste of time. Okay. And if they're serious, they won't just come into you. So understand that that is a myth. How about this? And you're not going to miss opportunities either. I'm scared of the phone. Yeah, I get this one because this was me back when I first started in sales. I hated the phone. Typically the only time the phone rang is back in, before I even got in, over 20 years ago was before I got into sales, was that, hey, anytime the phone's ringing, it's just someone wants money from me, period. Right. And that's really what it was because, hey, if I wanted to call family and knew those people's phone numbers, but every other time I picked up the phone, it was a solicitor or, somebody who wanted money from me. So what it did is I went through this really bad point of time financially. And I remember, I was so, when the phone rang, I just shivered. Right. And so anyway, I can get that people could be scared of the phone because it took me a long time to not be scared of the phone. But the reason why people are scared of the phone is because of a lack of knowledge. They don't know really what to say or how to use the phone properly, and there, with all the different types of calls out there that you can make, inbound, outbound, inbound calls you can receive, or whether they're outbound calls you're making, you got to understand that don't be scared of the phone. And the one thing that was told to me, and I'll tell this to you too, and maybe this will help you if you do have a fear of the phones, is that nobody can reach through the phone line and punch you in the face. And so you can't, nobody could do that. So you do have a distance between you and the other person, right? And so if you drastically mess up, no one's going to reach through the phone and punch you in the mouth, right? The phone doesn't work for me. Well, the phone doesn't work for you because you don't have the knowledge on what to do when the phone rings, and you don't have the knowledge on what to do when you dial somebody, and what you're going to say and how you're going to be effective. Because I'll tell you, maybe you called that customer who's already was in your showroom the previous day and they told you, no, I'm not buying that. And then you just give up. Well, you just spent 2 or 3 hours with that customer and they told you no, and you're just going to let those 2 or 3 hours go. 2 or 3 hours, think of how much energy, how many resources you exhausted just to get a written proposal in front of that customer. And they told you no, you're like, oh shoot, well, they'll call me if they really want it. And the reality is life gets so busy, and if they're shopping let your brand of whatever it is you sell, you just got to know they're shopping other people too. So, and when did they stop shopping? They stop shopping when they run into a sales professional who knows how to properly ask the right questions, properly use a sales process, properly use a call script or a phone guide or a call card, and probably knows how to control the phone